Podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. This is Kevin Martin with KYTC. Sorry we're a little late. We've had some connection issues that we're going to try to work out while we proceed with the webinar. I'd like to welcome you to our first official CAD Workspace Customizations webinar. This is going to be the first in an ongoing series leading up to the International HEAP Conference later in the year. And hopefully you can see my screen, we have an upcoming schedule. Topics are pretty well set, but we don't have specifics and we don't have presenters, I don't believe. So if you guys have anything in those topic areas that you'd like to present on, please let us know. After the webinar, there will be an email that's sent out to all the participants that will ask just that for future topics, or if you have somebody that would like to present, give us their information. And like I said, we're looking for presenter information on the 3 topics that are leading up to the September IHEAP conference. But today we're going to talk about custom workspaces, and we have 3 DOTs to present: Florida DOT, Ohio DOT, and PennDOT. And we're going to try to go in alphabetical order, starting with Florida, and try to work out some of the connection issues that we have. But I'm going to give them the screen. Bob, you guys want the screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to give you the screen here, if I can, to Bob Thornton, and let you take it away and do your part. We will hopefully be able to take questions after each one of these sessions. Everybody should be muted, and if you do have a question after each of the state's presentations, there's a raise hand option under, I think it's under the attendees box. So if you have a question, I believe that's how, and there may be some other way to do it. I'm not seeing it exactly, but there's a way you can raise your hand. If you get our attention that way, we can try to unmute you so you can ask your question later. So, Bob, you ready? Bob, you there?
Doesn't say we have a presenter yet.
There we go. This thing's a little slow. Sorry.
Here we go. Everybody can hear us now?
Yes, we can hear you.
So Florida DOT Connect Workspace is Chris Thorpe, Robert Thorberg, and myself, Todd Holt, have been working on it since January of 2017. Yep. Developing it in 2018. Today we're going to cover FDOT's workspace for Bentley, our types of installs, workstation and server client, the system variables, and then just kind of the general FDOT's workspace configuration. So we manage our workspace through the FDOT website, which it can be downloaded. We have our alpha release, or alpha 2, that we released in November of 2018. I'll have Bob or Chris add in if I miss anything. The 2 types of installs that we have a client and server. This can be used by CAD managers that has multiple workstations or desktops to load the workspace resource files on a server and then provide the client to all the workstations, or just a typical workstation that they can do to laptops or somebody that's not connected to a server. We go ahead and during the install, we provide 2 system variables: the FDOT organization, which is pointed to the C drive, or in case of server, it would be D or H. And it writes in there to the name of our workspace, which is f.connect, and we take that down to the organization civil level. And then our work sets to replace our projects is f.worksets, and we take that to our C drive under a folder named worksets. And the way we have it is the product needs to be loaded first. But when you load the product, you have to have kind of the know-how or the general location of where you want the workspace to go, either on your C drive or on the server. And we install that by, on the top right-hand corner of OpenRoads or OpenBridge Modeler or MicroStation Connect, we go ahead and click on the configuration or configure to take us to a custom workspace. And once we have that, we select the custom configuration plus delivered. So it's delivering our custom configuration to where we specify, and it delivers Bentley's to C program data. And then you browse to the folder where you want the f.connect workspace, the resources, BGN lives, cell libraries, and that stuff on either your C drive or where your server is located. And then for existing, if they've downloaded the program, either ORD or OpenRoads Designer, OpenBridge Modeler, or MicroStation Connect already, we just go into the configuration setup and write in there and point the UStation custom configuration line to equal where our resources are, the folder where we deliver our workspace. If you do it the other way, it does it automatically and writes it into this configuration setup once you install the product. And we're launching our workspaces by different icons depending on what Bentley program that the user has installed. MicroStation Connect, OpenRoads Designer, OpenBridge Modeler. And then through the icons, we call the discipline to load the configuration variables in that. And in our workspace, or the icons, we put a switch dependent on what configuration file to run into, depending on what discipline the user is going to use. And then the workspace also delivers a f.connect folder on the desktop that provides the user with the icons and also other helpful CAD go-to meetings to kind of get a hold of us, our CAD website, requests, file checker, different products that we have developed over the years to kind of enhance or help the user out if they run into problems. I think that's it for us, and we can open it up to
Questions? I think if anybody wants to raise their hand or type it into the questions box, we can try to do it that way as well. But I'll look here and see if anybody's raised their hand. Okay, somebody did ask a question. Bob, I don't know if you can see the questions as they come in.
We're not hearing them, though.
we're talking right now.
Can you guys see the questions as they come in?
Kevin, we can't hear you if you're talking right now.
Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
I need to redial the number.
Okay, sounds like we're having...
Say, Kevin, I can hear you.
Okay, I was going to say Alex over here said he could hear me as well. So, Bob, are you guys not able to hear? Okay, I guess what we could do is table these. I won't delete them. And then we could come back to it later. Guess that'll work. Lane, you okay with that? We'll just come back to it here in a minute when they figure out their audio.
You have your mic configured? Well, I know.
Welcome to the webinar. You have entered as
If you
an
switch
attendee
to-
in listen-only mode.
All right, Bob, can you guys hear me now? Because we can hear you. Okay, they must be having issues. So I'm going to mute them real quick. So there's a lot of questions queuing up here for Florida. Hopefully we can get them to where they can hear us and can answer some of these in a minute. John from Ohio, are you on here and able to talk now? Or?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So I'm going to give you control. Assuming you had a presentation to show. If not, take it away.
Yep. So, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen. There we go. I'm seeing the other screen, so you may have to.
Not all right.
Yeah.
Do this. Where's that?
You can do it from the other view if you want to, John. If you actually start
I
it.
just turned off the presenter's view that way.
There you go. Good to go now.
Okay, so I kind of got a lot to go through, so I'll try to go fast. So I know you guys wanted me to talk about the connected workspace, but we kind of mimicked that off of how we do our configuration outside of ProjectWise. So I wanted to go over a little bit how we set up outside ProjectWise and then go into how we set up ProjectWise. So I took the main idea of this was to show how we do our configuration. So that's what I'm going to go into. So just a little recap. I think most of you guys probably know the different levels for Connect Config. We are leaving organization level open. Our intent is to let the consultants use that as the organization gets leveled no matter, or get loaded no matter what workspace you select. So that's a good spot for them to put some of their stuff in there. And then we're going to, take a workspace for our DOT. And the idea here is other DOTs would use other workspaces, and then the contractor or consultant could just pick what workspace they wanted to work in. And then we all know the work sets are where the project files are. So just to kind of step through how we did the configuration, we're going to look at inside the install location for Migration Connect, inside the configuration folder. This is where you kind of start off with the configuration for editing it and whatnot. So you'll notice there's two config files. There's a workspace setup and a configuration setup. So this workspace setup, you can use this to define where, say, organization or workspaces are. But if you don't define anything, it's the defaults, which are shown right here. And you can also define that label for a workspace if you didn't want to show up as workspace. So if we look inside the workspace folder, you're going to see there are an example of config on the migration side. So ORD, you would see, I think there's 3 workspaces that you get. So you could put a config file in here for your workspace, but there's a better way to do it. And that's with this configuration setup config file. So if we take a look at this one, what we can do with this file is we can say, hey, go look somewhere else for configuration. And so the thing to keep in mind here is that this is a branch. So if you set a configuration setup in here, you're going to branch off your configuration over to some custom location, but it's still going to load the stuff in here. So keep in mind when I get later on this example workspace, we'll see where it shows up later on. Okay. So inside the custom config, or the configuration setup config file, you'll see there's a custom configuration, and Porter kind of alluded to this. And you can set this during install of the product itself, but if not, you can easily come here and set it. So what we're going to do is set it to a network drive. And so the benefit here is setting this one variable on a local machine is all you need to do to manage all your users, because everything else would be on the network. So to get a user set up in a network situation, it's just this one variable, which is pretty nice. You'll see that ultimately it sets the USTN configuration variable. And so we're going to keep that in mind for when we get to project-wise as well. So we're just setting that, so let's go take a look at that location. So connect config folder, it looks very similar, right? So I added the organization, the workspaces, and the workspace setup config file. It does the same thing that we were on the other side a second ago. So again, the workspace setup, you don't really need that if you're going to leave the defaults for workspaces and organization. So if we look inside workspaces, I threw a couple config files in there. So say fdots, odots, and pendots, say those are maybe workspace config files. So that right there is enough. If we go and look and we actually load up microstation ORD, in the drop down for selecting a workspace, we see there's that example configuration. So that's our example workspace. But using that custom configuration actually provides the separator. So you get to custom configuration and a nice little separator, which we liked. And then you see those three workspaces, which those are representative of the three config files. So I'd just like to mention that this might be a good way to go for other DOTs. That way we're not stepping on each other at all, and other consultants can load multiple DOTs in. So it's just something we're looking at, maybe suggesting there. So if we go further into our configuration, let me step back. So remember this ODOT config file for the workspace. So what do we do in that file? We do 4 things. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to set the workspace root. So that's where the project actually, or where the workspace is. We're just going to look for like your workspace files, like dgen libs, the libraries, and whatnot. And same thing with the standards. It just goes to the standards folder inside your workspace, as well as where the work set's going with this variable. And the last thing we do is we call a main config file. So we could have put all of our configuration in this file, like setting dgen libs and cell libraries and whatnot. But we wanted to call this config file with all the main stuff, so it would be inside our standards, so we have one location to update. You'll see that in a second. Looking at, say, what our workspace would be, so say you go inside our ODOT workspace folder, you're going to see a standards folder and a local folder. So everything that we deliver would go inside the standards folder, and the local folder is open for the consultant. So this would be for any customizations that the consultant might have, like custom files or configuration, that would be specific to our workspace. So organization would be, across all workspaces, where this local folder gives them a way to do a little bit of customization within just our workspace. And then we have 2 different ways to install: a local install and a server client install, similar like Florida. And it's just a custom-made executable that can be run silently. It actually does the configuration. So if you don't specify like the custom configuration variable during the install of the product, ours will actually set it for you. And then moving on quickly, just how we decided to create like a new work set with we're going to use the out-of-box microstation or D-way. So we're going to just go into microstation and hit create a new work set, and we have a template project there. And so when you create a new work set, we're going to say, hey, choose this template, give your work set a name and create, and that's how it's going to, create a new project or work set. Okay, so that was a little fast. I know I don't have much time to go over stuff. So moving on into the managed workspace, we wanted to mimic what we did outside the ProjectWise to inside ProjectWise. So looking at our data source, we added a standards folder and then a CAD standards inside there. And so inside this CAD standards folder, we have our connecting config folder, which would be equivalent to what I just went over outside. We have this O.CAD, that was for our V8i stuff. But the main thing here is the migration versions config file. So this is what we're using to kind of kick off the configuration on the managed workspace side. And there's if statement in there that checks the version of what product you're opening. So if it's like version 10, then it knows to go the connect way. If it's like version 8, it knows to go the V8i way. So that's the starting point. And having this file in here isn't enough to actually tell ProjectWise to use it. We still have to tell our data source, we want to, kick off this file. So we're going to do that through administrator. So we're going to go into ProjectWise administrator and go to manage workspaces under predefined, and we are going to create a configuration block for the predefined level. And all we're really going to do is call that migration versions config file. So again, just creating this block file is not enough to tell ProjectWise what to use. It's just a file that's been made. So the last thing I have to do is associate it with our data source. So real quick, the configuration settings block is just this. I'm giving you the location to the CAD standards, and then I'm saying, hey, here's that migration versions config file. If it exists, call it. If not, throw an error. That's all the block file is doing. So in order to associate this, I'm going to go in my administrator. I'm going to go to my data source and go to properties. Under the managed workspaces, under the predefined, I'm going to add association. I'm going to select that block file. So now anytime I open a DGN within this data source, it's going to know to load this predefined block, which then kicks off the migration versions config file. So inside this migration versions config file, right here is this if statement. So if defined version 10, so that's a variable you can use. And so if it is, I'm setting the USTN configuration variable. All right. So it's important to know, like managed workspace, it's still using like migration configuration. So setting this configuration level is basically like kicking off the migration configuration. So that's just like when we're outside, we're setting that variable as well. And then you'll see that if defined version 8, I cut off our V8i stuff because I don't think we're actually going to, we decided not to include the V8i managed workspace in our ProjectWise. We're just going to go straight with Connect. But that's how you could switch between the two if you were having both of them in there. Okay, so I set this configuration variable to point to this Connect config folder, right? So let's take a look inside of there. Oh, look, we got organization and workspace setup config. Doesn't that look familiar? So again, organization and workspaces are defaults. So you technically don't need the workspace setup config if you're going to use the defaults. So if we look inside workspaces, we got like 2 different versions of our workspace in there. So very similar. So now we've basically told ProjectWise and migration how to find our workspaces, but we haven't yet told it what workspace to use. We don't get to use the pull down because we're not launching it from the actual Bentley product. We're launching it from ProjectWise, so we don't get the opportunity to choose a workspace. So how we do that is, again, with the blocks. So we go back over to administrator. This time we're going to create a block under the workspace level. And so here's where you could create different blocks for different workspaces, say Florida or PennDOT or us. And so all we're doing in this block file is setting the workspace name. That is equivalent to choosing a workspace in the drop-down in MicroStation when you go to open it. Okay, so now this block file alone isn't enough, right? Just like before, we have to associate this with something. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to add the association on our workset template folder. So it's same thing. You click on the properties, add association under workspace, select that workspace block file. And so now when we create a new workset, we're going to use this template to create that, so that new workset is already going to know, okay, for this workset, I want to use this workspace. So that's how you could, get multiple workspaces into your managed workspace. So going a little bit forward, the last thing we have to do is tell it what work set to use, right? So a little background on how we set up our work sets inside ProjectWise is our main work set folder is a work area, and in our template we have sub work areas. So that's important to note because we're about to use some config variables that finds these. And then we also put our config file inside of our work set root and our DGNWS inside our work set root. So these aren't the default locations for these two files, so we're going to have to, in our configuration, specify how MicroStation should find these. Okay? So how do we define where the workset is? We're going to do that with the workspace. So we just set that block file for the workspace. So MicroStation is going to know how to find our workspace config file. So over here. So inside there, what we're doing here is we're going to make use of the dgender config and the DMS project, our parent project, and DMS project. So DMS project is going to say, you know, the dgen that I clicked on to open, go and find the first project, or now referred to as worked area. And the parent project could basically go up 2 worked areas. So why that's important is because I just mentioned we have sub work areas. So if I open a file inside here, I need to find this folder, which would be 2 up. If I'm, you know, somewhere in here opening dgen, it's only 1 up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, check the parent project, says 2 work areas up. Does it exist? If it does this work set config file exist? If it does, then set my work set root to this location. If not, then I must be in like case 2, where the root folder is just that first work area that you find. So this could be applied, you know, further if you had a more elaborate structure. If you had more sub areas, you could just keep checking up and up until you find that workspace config, work set config, sorry. And then, so I'm setting that work set root, and then I'm also setting where to find the config, because remember that's not the default location. We moved it inside the project. So work set CFG, I'm making sure I set that. So then now I can find that work set config file so I can load it. All right. A little bit more about the workspace level. So again, this is in the workspace level. We're setting the work set. We also call our main config file just like we did outside. Okay. So now in moving on to the work set level, again, we set that DGNWS to be inside of our project. So that's not the default. So in our work set config file, we're going to define this USTN workset DGNWS variable so that MicroStation can find that DGNWS file. We also do other things like set some project specific stuff, but that's the main one right there if you're going to move your DGNWS file around. Here's a little recap I won't go over. I'm sure we'll provide this PowerPoint if you guys want it. So the last thing is, how did we create our work set inside of ProjectWise? So basically, you guys should know to create a work set, you need 3 things. You need the folder template, the config file, and the DGNWS. So the steps to create a work set inside ProjectWise would be, first, you can create a work area and select that template that I showed earlier. And so that you can get like a list in ProjectWise of all your work area templates. So if you had more, you could choose from them. So that's going to create your folder structure. So next, we will copy our config file for that work set and just change the name to match whatever we named that work area. All right. So we got 2 of the 3. The last one is the tricky one because you can't just copy and change names of the DGNWS file. Inside the file, it also has things that need to change. So you can't just go and move that around. So the way to get this to work is to let MicroStation do it. So first time the user opens MicroStation, it's going to go and look for that DGNWS file at the location we specified with this variable right here. If it can't find it, it's going to create one. And where's it going to create it from? It's going to use this variable right here, the USTN workset DGNWS template. So if you define that in your workspace config file, then it'll know where to where to grab your DGNWS template from, and then it'll rename that for your project or work set. So that's a little bit of workaround because there is no way to use like the MicroStation create work set inside ProjectWise. I've kind of made it known to them that you guys kind of forgot about this piece. But so until they figure out something to easily create it, you have to do this manually. So we just made a little application that runs inside of ProjectWise to do all this in one fell swoop to make it easier on our users. And we also can apply access control there as well. So that's how we created our work set. I know I flew through that. I wanted to try to leave some time, but hopefully that laid it out, how we did our configuration, and it makes sense to everyone.
All right, thanks, John. I guess we can take questions now. John, you did have the first question right off the bat. I think you already answered is, can you share this PowerPoint presentation? You said you would do that.
Yep, I'll share it out.
Okay. Do you all have a web link, or do you just want to send it to me and I can distribute to everybody? Whatever works best.
I can throw an FTP or send it to you. It doesn't matter.
Okay. If it's not too big, you can just email me, and I'm going to send it out to everybody on the list. So, all right. So you guys can try to raise your hand if you have a question for John, or type it in the. We had a lot of questions for Florida come in through the questions box. I assume the raise hand option is supposed to be working. Nobody's done it yet, so.
I guess I can't see the chat question.
All right, Brian Edwards has a question for John, so let's try this. Okay, Brian, are you on here?
Hey, yes, I am. It's Brian in North Carolina. So we are in the process of moving to ProjectWise, and I think we've been wrestling around with this work sets. We've been told that the work sets don't work with the version of maybe it's just with the version of ProjectWise that we have. Did you guys have that same issue, or and you just worked around it, or maybe you guys have a newer version?
Are you talking about the DGNWS file, or just work sets?
I'm just talking about using work sets in ProjectWise.
So, this was our workaround to get it to work. As long as you have these three things and your MicroStation configuration is set up, in terms of what MicroStation sees, it doesn't really care that you're inside ProjectWise at the end of the day. It just makes sure the configuration is set up right. So yeah, this was working. Now, I did hear that there are some performance issues with the DGNWS file being inside ProjectWise. Supposedly there's going to be a fix to that. We're still early on implementation, so we have it set up and we've done some testing, but we're not actually in like a production yet. But yeah, this worked. I mean, I created one, I opened it up, and now the DGNWS, there's some bugs, defects filed still. That's inside and outside of ProjectWise, the same thing. When you have MicroStation recreated like we're doing, if you are using like what is that called, the index, the sheet index, it doesn't really work. It's a bug, so they know about it. They're supposed to be fixing it, but no, this works.
And are you guys doing cloud hosted, Bentley cloud hosted, or are you?
Sure, we are cloud hosted.
Okay.
And we have caching servers.
Right. Okay. No, that sounds great. That's great information. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Brian. John, do have a couple of questions here real quick. How do you plan on dealing with file branding of ORD OBM?
So in terms of our standards, we have a sync tool for our standards. So we don't do like quarterly releases. We just push the updates whenever we want, and it's then on the consultant, they can run the sync tool whenever they want, and they get the updates. So in that sync tool, we're adding a version control in, so they can say, hey, I don't want anything over ORD version update, whatever. In terms of branding, like between the products, I don't really see that being a problem in our workspace, because they're going to be, ORD stuff. We don't have bridge stuff in there yet, but when we do, those will be branded with the bridge stuff. So I'm not so worried about that side. It's a slight thing we have to worry about, but in terms of use, I understand it. I understand that, they want to enhance these products, and it's going to be hard to get them all to work together. So I see a slight problem, but I don't see a huge one here. I guess, was there something in particular you were worried about? I'm more worried about the versions of changing the civil data schema. That's what I'm more worried about than the branding itself between the products.
Okay, thanks, John. If there's a follow-up question for John, then you can just submit that again. And I think that's it as far as I see. See, Randy Robinson had his hand raised for almost the entire time, so I don't know. Randy, are you wanting to ask a question, or is that just a holdover?
Oh, no, you asked if somebody raised their hand, and I did.
Okay. My brother's looking out for me. Thank you very much. So it is working. All right. So follow up, John, from Wade. Work that comes from consultants is what he was specifically asking about on the branding.
I mean, I guess I haven't given it too much thought, but I mean, if they do something we have all the products, so I feel like we could still open it. I guess I haven't given it too much thought to know. I'd have to think about it more to see what kind of problems would arise.
Okay. And that could be something. If somebody does have something on that, we can discuss it the next one, or have a follow-up email kind of going over it. So, okay. So
real quick, another thing that came up with submitting files is the DGNWS and how when you double click on a file, it opens and knows what workspace and workspace it is. Well, if they're using a different name for your workspace, that is kind of broken when they send it to you, because then when you go to open it, it doesn't. You have a different workspace name, so it doesn't know. So I thought about restricting the name of our workspace to be everyone have the same name, but it's really easy to fix that with some key-ins. So I don't know if it's going to be a huge problem, but that's another thing to look at.
Okay. All right. That looks like that's all. Thanks a lot, John, for doing that. Mm-hmm. And let's see. Bill Harrison, your group, I don't have audio control for you guys, so I don't know what to do.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, you're good now, man. You got something to show on your screen?
I don't think we have anything as elaborate as the last two.
Well, I'm going to give it to you anyway, so.
Yeah. Our plan was to kind of look at the product and what we were doing with some workspace work set items, and then noticed that Ohio was doing. What screen can you see right now from us? Is it blank, or do you see?
Seeing your Windows background and icons.
Okay, so that one.
There you go. I see your Explorer window now.
Okay. So it was interesting to us some of what Ohio had, because some of us here certainly feel like that's the way the workspace should be set up, and not at like the org civil level that Bentley sort of implemented. I'll let John Frampton is here, and he's going to talk about some of what we have and maybe some of that. So I'll turn it over to him here on our side.
Okay. Thanks everyone for having us in to present. So just real quick, I was going to cover the way we've changed and adapted the workspace for PennDOT. PennDOT did a very simple setup. This is the installed workspace, or configuration as Bentley's calling it now, on the local machine. We've simply just copied that up, the org civil and the workspace level to the server. And as ODOT had showed, the configuration setup file in it, we use the UStation custom configuration. This is actually changed when you change it in your installer. One of the things we do is we actually use a system variable that's set at login to determine which server the workspace is set up we have our CAD standards stored on district servers, and we have 11 or 12 different district servers. And we install the product by using Bentley's standard installer, and we build a package using the /layout and have it pointed to that configuration going up to our server location. I did like what ODOT did by using the workspaces, the named workspaces. One of the things Bentley has done with the civil products is they've created an organization civil folder. I think it complicates the matter a little bit. We are using it currently. As you can see, we have our PennDOT standards folder in there, and it's read by the PennDOT CFG. All that it really is in the world is just a redirect from the workspaces. Workspaces just say to go use the PennDOT. If I can find it here, it says to just go use the PennDOT standards at the org civil. So bringing that down and actually having that data at that workspace level, I really like, and I agree that that's the way we should move forward. And I like PennDOT's idea of, or ODOT's idea of us all just kind of saying, this is how we're going to deliver it. After that, we are planning on to implement work sets. We are going to implement a seed work set. I have an example of that over here. When creating a new work set, you can select that seed work set. Here, I'll just do it. There are some bugs with this, as ODOT pointed out. We have filed about 5 different bugs that Bentley's telling us they're going to fix between release 12 and release 13 of their platform. And what that did is it just copied for me all of my folders and subfolders. It doesn't really work if you redirect this stuff outside of the standard Bentley folders at current. That's some of the bugs we've asked them to address. One of the files it copied, for instance, was my cover file. And these seed files that it's copying will be set up predefined with inside of our sheet index. They'll just be part of the sheet index. I know that's a topic for for 2 months from now. But as you can see here, this is that problem ODOT pointed out with the duplicate sheet indexes, where sheet indexes were copied around. So they do tell us that's supposed to be fixed in 12. This index actually has a set of properties on it for district, county, township. And of course, once you key this in, it'll update. Oops, let me save it. It'll update on any of the sheets that are using those fields. So that's one of the areas we're actually in process of developing now. When you're cutting your sheets inside ORD, it'll cut them directly into the sheet index. It'll put them into the subfolder that you select, and it'll then number them. The numbers will automatically be added to the sheets. We use text fields to do that. Trying to think of some other things, other areas we've developed. Here are some of the bugs we filed against work sets. As pointed out, they don't work if you've redefined them outside of the Bentley standard structure. The duplication inside the DGN WS file. So they're working with us to solve them, but I haven't seen anything from them lately on them. About it. I mean, it's a pretty standard configuration. Like I said earlier, we're using that org civil folder. It's the way Bentley is delivering their civil products, but I do like the idea of getting rid of it and moving everything just into the workspaces, which would be a pretty easy move for us to do. There's only a couple configuration variables then. We'll go ahead and open it up.
Yep. Any questions for Pennsylvania? See if anybody's raising their hand. ProjectWise, are you guys using ProjectWise?
We are not. We have it as pilots at one district.
Yeah.
We are not using.
Between two districts, we have a pilot going in the V8I environment, nothing in Connect, and our statewide adoption of ProjectWise kind of got halted and was wrapped into a bigger, I think they call it design collaboration project, which they're looking to do a whole bunch of stuff, not just what ProjectWise does. And it was deemed easier to kind of make one big contract, I guess, that goes out and it may hit multiple vendors and let a sub handle it rather than us write individual contracts to multiple companies to handle everything of what was in the requirements. So we may get ProjectWise or we might not. We don't know. We think that's what we would like to have, at least on dealing with the CAD files part.
John from ODOT needs to be unmuted.
Okay, hang on. All right, John.
I have a question. Oh, go ahead.
Hey, I don't know if my chat's going to anyone but the organizers. I can't see anything else, but I just had a comment about that civil organization level. I don't know if everyone realizes that's not a real organization. Like USTN underbar organization never gets set to civil organization.
Yeah,
it's
that's
impossible.
what I was saying. It's actually a reroute from the workspaces level.
Yeah, it's not actual organization, and you never actually set the organization using that. And you actually can't set the organization inside of a workspace. It doesn't let you. I don't know if everyone saw that, because I feel like Bentley really confused everyone by naming civil organization with never actually using the organization level.
Well, I was wondering, is anyone actually using that level? I mean, I think the civil guys really kind of confused the workspace by doing it. I think either doing it the way Florida did it, putting their data at the true organization, or the way ODOT did it by putting theirs at the workspace and allowing the consultants to put the stuff up at the organization. I think either of those are better ways to do it than using the civil order.
I'd like to say I don't really think that we should use the real organization level, because that always gets loaded, no matter what workspace you use. So I don't know if that's a really good place for us if we want to let them use other DOT standards.
Well,
I missed the start of Florida, so.
I was only thinking of that because, you are the organization. I mean, I can see it. I can see both points there.
I don't know if you guys can see the questions or not, but had a couple come in after that. Washington State is working at that level at this time. And then also somebody from Minnesota said they plan on skipping the org level like Ohio because it doesn't fit MicroStation.
Yeah, it doesn't fit what you have to deliver to your consultants. Yeah, I agree.
Any other questions? I'm going to see. Florida, you guys back on here?
Yeah, we're still here.
Okay, I had to switch you off from an attendee. So there were a bunch of questions. So I guess for now we'll go back through those real quick if we can.
Sure.
With you guys. And I don't know if you guys can see it or not. I can read them off if you'd like.
I can't see them now.
Okay, the first question, or a couple of questions are you guys using ProjectWise or some other document management system?
It's another document management system. Vault.
Well, Kevin, this is Vern. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Vern.
Yeah, so we're not using managed spaces at this point. You know, we've got two different workspaces, one in Bentley, one in Civil 3D environment. So we haven't moved to a managed workspace. We've never had one. So, you know, I don't know if someday in the future we will, but if we did, we'd have to manage two different platforms for sure. So.
Yeah. Okay. There was another question. What is the advantage of using configuration setup.config rather than using the workspace setup.config for directing to your organization standards?
It allowed us to have that local, or have it remote or local. That was the easiest way to work around all those other problems people have using it in the program data directory. So the only file that's touched it's touched by Bentley, and our workspace is sitting separate away from theirs. Yeah, same way Ohio is doing it.
Yeah, if I could add to that, you know, you get that separator in your workspace drop down, so it actually separates like what they deliver and then what you customize, as well as what you mentioned, like you can set that one config rail to the network, and then that's all you have to do on each machine, and you can manage everything else on the network. So it's very easy to manage when you look at the organizational level, like multiple users and stuff. So you could technically do that with the regular workspace, but just make it more complicated.
Having to use the user, having to provide the user. We have to provide the user with some files, and that's why we put the FDOT workspace on the user. Can't think of what the reports. Yeah. So the civil reports, you can't have multiple folders for civil reports that we found a way to get to yet. So Bentley provides civil reports, and we provide our own civil reports. So we have to put our civil reports in the Bentley folder on the workstation, on the user's workstation. So we have to do an install there, and we also provide them with other little tools that they can use.
Yeah, I asked Bentley for a config variable to redirect the style sheet report locations so that we could have our own custom location, not have to rewrite them every time. Way back in SS4, but we still don't have a variable for that. Unless somebody else has figured out a way to do it. Be open to it.
One last question for Florida. Are all workspace DGN libs stored in one location?
Yes. Yeah, they're all in their workspace. DGN live folder, yeah. Do you want to show our screen there, and we'll show you where we put all that stuff?
Yep. All right, hang on just a second. I got two Bob showing up in my list, so I may grab the wrong one here. I think I did. Hold on.
Yeah, I've got it here. It's all right.
Okay.
Either one's fine. I have the workspace on.
We're seeing it now.
Okay, so under organization, go to FDOT, and then all of our folders are in here for our apps and our DGN lives. So we put all our DGN lives in here. Like for civil cells or whatever, they're all in here.
If you go back to the F document folder, we're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
The organization, civil workspaces.
And this one here is the Workspace set up, and then that's the organization civil. We put it in there so that we could have a separation between, like this could handle Ohio or other DOTs, Pennsylvania. I've got some users in New York that will probably be doing the same thing. So, you know, we'll have consultants with multiple workspaces on here, and it's something you have to work with. We ran into a problem just today with moving between ORD and this little guy, MicroStation Connect. MicroStation Connect doesn't like features, so it just deletes them. So if you have a file with features in it and you decide you want to just open it up in MicroStation Connect, it's just going to delete them and it's not going to warn you. So it doesn't matter how many models you have, it just goes through them all. Be careful.
Very, very careful.
Yes, we're thinking about discontinuing support for MicroStation Connect because it's pretty dangerous to have out there.
Connecticut's going to do the same thing. We're not loading MicroStation Connect.
Fabulous.
Only ORD and OpenBridge and EcoSim.
You don't think you're going to have any pushback from anybody, consultants or people?
We might, but I don't want to run anything, losing data and having to support even more. It's going to be enough just supporting those three major applications. So for now, I'm thinking no plain MicroStation.
No, I mean, it just goes against everything we've always done.
I know.
If you're writing to a DGN file, you should be able to open up with MicroStation.
So what are you guys doing then if you don't install MicroStation Connect? Are you just going to use OpenRoads Designer license for everything? Because we looked at that.
Yes, yes.
DLS, and it's going to drive our cost up substantially to use OpenRoads Designer for everything.
It will.
Well, Bentley needs to fix this problem. They need to fix the issue then with versions and, if you've done something in something that was a MicroStation was built on 12 and ORD's only on 11 and they're not talking with each other, Bentley's got to step it up when it comes to that. I don't know.
The whole schema thing has me worried.
Yep.
Like ODOT said regarding the versioning and stuff, opening files, being able to use, we're evaluating R4 2018 R4 right now, and files have to all be updated to the new schema. The workspace can't be used with 2018 R3 any longer.
Yeah, we had a consultant that still had R3 installed, and we had updated some files for R4, and they opened it up and said they couldn't see any of our preferences except for, I think, our pseudo preferences. Everything else was gone. They updated to R4, and they said, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
So
there's a schema problem.
Yeah, so I can't see right now trying to manage MicroStation on top of that.
Exactly.
How do they take care of their user press? Could they wipe that out?
With your user press, are you wiping out all your user press when you go through your versioning? When you update?
Connecticut is, yes.
NDOT is as well.
Yeah, we found we wrote a little app to take that care of that. It became so, such a drag going through there every time I'm doing that.
Oh, that's a nice idea.
You should show them your little workspace document.
Yeah, I've got in here somewhere. This guy here.
I'm sure Chuck told you guys, but you have to build new seat preferences too if you're using an SPF file. New version.
We have a similar one in a batch.
Yeah, there's a batch involved with this one as well, but it'll kill everything on there like a brand new install.
We haven't done the preference change.
No, we haven't even done preference change.
Yeah.
Just a side note, with Florida, I guess, but my only suggestion would be, most people probably don't want to put like other state DOT standard inside a folder that says a different state.
Yeah, that's
So maybe your top level folder, don't put like FDOT in it. That way, if someone does, like it's just weird to see it like that. If you want to put in other state DOTs, you got to put it inside a folder with your state on.
Not really. We're ultimately going to have this one level deeper to allow that to happen.
Okay.
See, under organization civil, so we would have under.
I mean, you started at Connect.
I know it's going. That's going to be one level deeper.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we just do it, connect workspaces, and then
It's at the install level, right? So you can define that at the install, right? It's one of the options, yeah.
Okay. I guess that's it. Unless you presenters have anything else. There was one follow-up question for Florida, I think, a few minutes ago. It was something you were talking about before. They followed up was, is that in the registry, the style sheet route?
no.
Okay.
We can check. I don't know if we've ever looked in the registry for it. But can you set multiples? That's the thing.
So you're going to have different style sheets for each program.
I mean, if, let's say Reynolds Smith and Hill, one of the consultants here, creates some custom style sheets off of one of the Bentley ones and they want to save them, I mean, and then they update the version of OpenRoads Designer, it's going to wipe out anything that they put in there. So, we have to keep them in a separate folder, and then when we do the install, we actually make copies of them and put them into the Bentley folder. What would be better is, just like any other config variable, if you could just define another path for it to include the additional reports in addition to what Bentley delivers. And you're thinking there might be a registry value is that a suggestion or just something for us to look into?
No, that was a question, so I'm not sure.
Well, we logged it as a change for the for the Connect setup.
Okay.
I've seen it in communities. It's not just us that's had that. I'm trying to remember, one of the other DOTs is putting their style sheets out on a SharePoint site or something for their consultants to access.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, I guess if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and wind this one down. Definitely big thanks to all the guys in Florida, John in Ohio, and all the guys in Pennsylvania for presenting today, and all the questions that we got. Love the feedback. So if I, for some reason, missed your question or you have follow-up questions, my email is pretty easy. It's kevin.martin@ky.gov. You can just route everything through me and who the question's for, and I'll try to get it out to whoever. And then, like I said, we'll try to get John's, the ODOT's PowerPoint presentation, and anybody else that wants to share theirs as well. We'll try to distribute that to the group. We got an upcoming webinar again, March 4th. I want to send the invite out today or tomorrow, I hope. Try to get the phone number thing straightened out. There was some wonky stuff with a Canadian number because we do have some people from Canada dialing in, and for some reason, if I put U.S. and Canada, it gives me one number for Canada. So I don't know what the deal is, but we'll try to clarify that for you all. Sorry. We are still looking for presenters. If there's anything survey related that you'd like to talk about, please let us know, either Elaine or myself. So, Elaine, you got anything else you wanted to mention before we close it out? Don't know if she's still on here or not, but
Oh, no, I'm good. I think you covered everything. Thank you, Kevin.
okay. And I have recorded this, so hopefully we'll be able to get this thing somehow uploaded to the HEAP website. We'll talk to Ernie and see how he wants to handle all that. Ernie Treadway in Alabama is our web guy, so we'll try to figure out how to get the recording out there for you all. So thanks a lot for attending, and look forward to hearing from you and seeing you next time on March the 4th, and again in Asheville at the International Conference in September. So thanks a lot.